Hello, hello. I am so excited for you to listen to today's podcast. So, I had the pleasure of having Sarah on the podcast today. She is a trauma therapist based in Florida who really works and specializes in helping survivors of sexual violence, which I think is obviously such a very important niche and even like a little taboo to talk about on Instagram. And Sarah has had incredible success. So, she has less than 1,000 followers, about 750 at the time of this recording, and has a full caseload of clients, which like a large majority of which have come from Instagram, which is just so incredible. And I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode because I think it helps to really debunk this myth that you need to have, a really broad niche or you need to have a ton of followers in order to be successful on Instagram and to get clients. And what Sarah really shows with this episode is that what you need is to be focused on helping your people, on showing up, on really creating content that's aligned with your values and that is really, really specific to the people that you serve. And if you do that, you can get clients consistently. You can feel really good about the work you're doing on Instagram, and you can really have a very substantial increase in your income by showing up and creating content, even in the earlier stages where you still have a relatively small following. So I hope that you enjoy this episode and let's dive in.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Hi, Kelly. I'm excited to be here.
Tell folks a little bit about who you are, where you're practicing, the sorts of folks that you see in your private practice.
Yeah, I own a private practice. It's called Healing Loudly. I am based in Fort Myers, Florida, and I see women who've experienced sexual trauma. I'm an EMDR therapist, and I just love being able to help people overcome some of their past traumatic issues.
Amazing. So I know that when you started your career, you were working in community mental health with sort of like a similar population providing free therapy. Can you tell me a little bit about what that transition was like for you to go from, serving survivors in a community mental health setting to kind of making that decision to start your own practice and see them on your own?
Yeah, so in the past 6 years before I jumped into private practice, I was at a local rape crisis center in Naples, and I loved the population. I actually loved working with everyone too. It was like a really great community. But working in nonprofit, there just isn't a lot of money, and
Mm,
it wasn't very sustainable for me, especially with inflation growing. So it was just difficult to continue moving forward in my life, and that's when I decided to make the jump into private practice and wanting to see clients through my own brand.
yep. When did you actually start your private practice?
So I opened my private practice almost exactly 1 year ago. So in
Yay.
May of last year, and then I started my Instagram 9 months before I opened my private practice to just try to get the ball rolling and figuring out the ins and outs of Instagram. And that was a very nerve wracking but exciting experience too.
Yep. I'm curious what that was like for you in the beginning to be showing up on Instagram without like sort of anywhere to be sending people, right? Like really just laying that groundwork of I'm going to start building a community here, but knowing that you weren't sort of ready to get clients at that point.
Yeah, so it was more about the educational pieces. I still want to be a voice in the community for survivors, and it was I would ask people to follow me rather than click the link in my bio to
Hmm.
sign up for a therapy consultation, and that was an interesting transition, trying to figure all of the other pieces out once I went into private practice and streamlining different consultation calendars and all of that.
Yep. Did you make the leap into private practice like full time from the jump, or was there sort of like an in between building stage where you were working your community mental health job and, sort of building your private practice on the side?
Yeah, it was definitely a transitional period. So I opened my Instagram in August of 2023, opened my private practice in May of 2024, and then I saved all of my PTO for that entire year to take off the Tuesday from August to December of 2024,
Oh,
because I
wow.
worked a 4-day week. And so I was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I had Mondays off to work on my private practice and then Tuesdays off because I saved up all my PTO.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I feel like so smart to like really give yourself those dedicated days that you were able to like see clients, work on your marketing, like get all your systems in place without having like that pressure of fully ripping off the financial band-aid and saying like, I'm not going to have my salary to support me anymore at this point.
Right, especially like all the benefits, like insurance, like having to like figure all of that out, and then renting an office space. I started renting my first office space in September of last year, and so luckily, like the nonprofit that I work for, is also very very supportive. Like they knew that I wanted to go into private practice, and they were like, whatever we can do to help you, just let us know. And I know not a lot of companies do that. So I'm just super grateful for their like flexibility and support throughout my entire process.
Yep. Were you kind of like expecting that going in, or were you nervous, like not really knowing if they were going to be supportive or not?
So I wasn't 100% sure, but I started volunteering with that organization since I was 15.
Okay.
I have known them for almost half of my life. And just that building that kind of like relationship is what helped that transition, and like trusting that, like, in me and like believing in me.
Yeah, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, for today's episode, I really want to chat about how you've been able to get clients so consistently from Instagram, because I think it's pretty amazing. You have about 750 followers at the time that we're recording this. And I think most people like hear the idea of like getting clients from Instagram and they assume it's somebody that has, 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers, that you really need like a big audience and a big community. But you've been able to get like quite a few clients from Instagram with 750 followers. So let's dive in a little bit there. Can you tell me about like maybe the first time that you got a client inquiry from Instagram, what that was like? Was it because something went viral, or was it just like sort of a regular post? What sort of happened there?
So I got a couple of client inquiries on Instagram, maybe around like 200 to 300 followers, but nothing
Mhm.
like pulled through yet. And then my first one that like pulled through, did her intake form, started therapy with me, was around 300 to 400 clients. And she found me on Instagram by like typing in trauma therapist in Florida, and I popped up, and she like looked through my thing. She's like, "That's the one," and
Yeah.
moved forward with me. And so that was super exciting to like see that. And then over like the past month or so, especially with April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, like they kept on like rolling in almost every week. So that's been really exciting to see that happen.
Yeah. It's so cool too to see it's not always about like getting the most reach or having the most followers, but that even having like that search engine optimization on Instagram by like whether it's in your name field, if it's in your hashtags that people can search and actually find you is
Mm-hmm.
huge, right? Because I think at the end of the day, like people, maybe brands when they're looking to partner with somebody, yes, they want somebody with lots of followers and great engagement and stuff. But when we're hiring a therapist, that's not necessarily what we want at all. We just want to see, like, okay, I want to find a therapist who I like trust, who I like their vibe, who I feel like really gets me. And it's so much easier to tell that from something like Instagram versus Psychology Today or a website or something.
Right. And like finding things like so relatable. Like even like friends will like message me like separately, like saying like, "Hey, like I really related to like your post today. Like this was like such great content that you had."
Yeah. I'm curious if you've had any issues with like reach or content getting flagged because of your niche talking about sexual violence.
Um, yeah, I haven't had any issues, thankfully, with
Yeah.
getting flagged, but it's always like something that's like on my mind. So I'll use SA as like
Yeah.
sexual assault as kind of like the way around that. But I know not everybody kind of knows what that acronym is. Um, or I'll say sexual trauma like sometimes, and like then I'll just kind of like cross my fingers and hope that nothing
Yeah.
gets flagged.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, you're obviously allowed to talk about like sexual trauma or sexual assault on Instagram, but you're not allowed to talk about like sex on Instagram or like
Hmm.
selling sex or anything like that. And so Instagram has like AI features that are basically trying to filter through content and understand, what's allowable and what's not allowable. And so a lot of therapists that work with, survivors of abuse or even sex therapists like have this issue where, sometimes Instagram can sort of flag their content mistakenly, right? It's not, I don't think their intention to like suppress content like that. It's super needed. And so, I always see therapists that work with issues around sex doing like all kinds of, spelling like S3X and stuff like that, to try and like stop the AI bots from picking them up and flagging them.
Yeah, and another one is child sexual abuse. That one is like very like tricky to like post about. I helped the nonprofit when I worked there like do some of their Instagram like years ago, and we did get flagged a couple of times like when posting about that, trying to create like awareness about the issue.
Yep. Yeah. And you can always too like appeal that with Instagram, and usually they're pretty good. But it is just like annoying when that happens. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, we always got it back, when we got flagged. So
good. So have Reels really been like the way that you've sort of like grown your Instagram page and focused on content, or what has that sort of balance looked like between like Reels and posts and stories for you?
Yeah, so I do a mixture of reels, stories, posts, carousels. My favorite is posting reels, and my favorite reel to post is like the lip sync ones. Like I just kind of like I love being like confrontational in a way and funny at like the same time. And so with the lip syncs, I find that very like aligned with me, and those are more easy for me to like post about. But some of the other ones, like the storytelling ones, are really important. Like you talking face to face to the camera is very important, just so like people know who you are and like build that trust with you. And then the carousels and the posts help with the people that already follow you, and they like I find that those get more like shares. Like people will like send it to other people, put it on their stories, whereas reels, it's more about like getting people that don't follow you.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Like reels are great for reach, and especially like the lip syncing ones are really good at like sort of validating things or having people say like, "Oh shoot, like I do that." Whereas carousels, you can be like a bit more educational, and so I think that that's one reason why they're really highly shared, highly saved, and really good for sort of like converting the people that are finding you from reels into actual therapy clients, because that's really your chance to sort of show up as an authority, as somebody who's really positioned to help them, and not just say like, yeah, like I'm so relatable, I get, what it's like, but to also say, I can really truly help you like overcome this trauma.
Yeah, and posting like about like what's working, what's not working for them, like coping skills and like things like that, I think are like better more in like my posts. With like the reels and like doing some of like those lip sync ones, with sexual trauma, not a lot of people feel like validated and heard and believed. And so when I say something that is very validating, they're like, oh my gosh, like that can like create that huge sense of being like believed, and that like there are people out there that like do support them.
Yep. I'm curious if it feels challenging for you at all to do the lip syncing ones with such like a quote unquote serious niche. Sometimes I hear that from therapists who, work with trauma specifically, of like, it doesn't feel aligned to do reels. I feel like, I'm making light of something serious, or like that's not really my style, like to be a little funny with it. It doesn't feel right given the topic. Has that sort of come up for you at all, or?
Um, it depends on like the reel. There are like certain reels that like I probably couldn't do because like you don't want to make like light of someone like being like a survivor, but you can kind of play with like the confrontation like pieces of it, and like like it coming from a place of like you validating and believing them, and as long as like you have like that purpose like in mind, then I think it will come out authentic, and then you can always add in your captions like what the reel is about to add that value.
Yeah. And kind of have more context there.
The clarification piece, yeah.
So to sort of like show what this looks like in practice, I was just looking at your reels, and you have one from yesterday where the audio is from Lady Gaga, the Bad Romance song, where it's like, I don't want to be friends. And you're lip syncing it, right? And on the screen, you have when someone says there's two sides to every story after you share about your essay. I think that that is such like a brilliant example of how we can use like a funny, upbeat, lighthearted song to really show this point that like, yeah, there's not two sides to every story. That's not something that you condone. That's not something that you agree with.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
love
like
that.
very like validating for survivors to hear and see things like that. And they want to make sure like when they come to a therapist that they are going to be believed, and that the therapist isn't going to be like, well, why didn't you try this? Or what about like there's the other side? Or like, those like really stupid questions that sometimes happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's like an unfortunate reality that that's something like a lot of people struggle with, even in the therapy space. I've had a client who like had an experience where she shared with a previous therapist and a prescriber like about a sexual assault and was basically met with that kind of response. And I think that it can be so damaging. And so like people really need to hear quite simple stuff like this of I'm going to have your back. Like, I'm going to take your side. I am here for you in order to really have safety to even decide, yes, I want to work with you.
Right, because when people come from that kind of experience, especially if it was like their first time like going into therapy and they get that kind of response, it's so hard for them to even want to go back to therapy after that. So when you show up on Instagram and say things like this, it gives people oh, like maybe like this is possible for me again. Maybe I will be believed, in that hope.
Yep. I love that because I think, too, another thing, like just sort of hearing you talk is you've done like a great job with getting clients from Instagram, but it's also super clear to me that that's not your only mission in showing up here. You also really have like kind of more purpose behind it to really help people, to really like, show survivors that you believe them, to provide education in your community, even if people don't become clients.
Hmm.
I'm curious how that sort of balance has been between trying to create content that does, sort of grow your practice and move it forward, while also really remaining like true to your mission and your values and sort of like your why behind starting Instagram or starting your own private practice to begin with.
Yeah, being a voice like for survivors is so important for me. Um, I am actually full in my practice right now. Like I could probably accept like a couple more people, but even if I couldn't, I would still show up on Instagram just so survivors know that they are believed. Because I don't want to be in a world where survivors like feel that they aren't believed at all. And I'm like looking to like grow my practice, like, and that's kind of where the direction I'm heading is like wanting to hire on other therapists who have this mission to want to be a part of my brand, and open up a space where like there's like community and people can come to, and like I have community events and like things like that. So those are all things that like I'm like looking forward to, and showing up like on Instagram regardless like if I am seeing clients or not is just so important.
Yep, I love that. So let's talk a little bit of like numbers and success and what that's looked like. So you said your practice is like mostly full. I'm curious if
Hmm.
you have any idea of like how many clients you've gotten from Instagram at this point, or even like the percentage of clients, from Instagram compared to other referral sources and what that sort of has looked like.
So my top referral sources are other colleagues, Psychology Today, and Instagram.
Yeah,
Instagram, how many have I gotten? I want to say it's like close to a third.
yeah,
That's kind of like the percentage that I would give it. Yeah.
very cool.
Hmm.
And do you notice any difference between like the types of clients that you're getting from Instagram versus like other colleagues or Psychology Today?
Yeah, Instagram is definitely like my most specific targeted clients. Like those are definitely my best fitting clients are the ones from Instagram, like hands down without a doubt.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
When you are sharing on Instagram, what sort of like calls to action do you use to make sure that people are aware that you are actually accepting clients, and to kind of get people to take that next step?
Yeah, so I think on every single post, that's like my last line is always like a call to action. And it can be something more specific or it can be like more general, like click the link in my bio if you'd like a free consultation with a licensed trauma therapist in Florida and like
Yeah.
Florida residents only. Sometimes I'll be like slightly more specific, like with the reel that we just talked about. I don't know if I did this at the end, but I can say something like, if you're struggling with not feeling believed about your sexual trauma and you need that extra support through therapy, click the link in my bio to schedule a free consultation if you're a Florida resident.
Yeah. So we're kind of like always constantly reminding people that that
Yes.
is an option available to them.
Always, because people will look you up and go through all of your stuff and they'll read your captions and things. And so if it's like very consistent in every caption, then it's like that reinforcement. Okay, like maybe I should, sign up for like this consultation with this person.
Yeah. I think that that's so true. And then I think on the flip end, also, like people don't always read the caption or they don't always read
Mm-hmm.
it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, like, if you just have that buried at the bottom of your caption once a week, like you might have people who actually follow you and like really like your content and are looking for a therapist, but don't even realize what state you work in or that you're accepting new clients or that they actually could work with you or what steps to take to do that. And so I think that that like consistent reinforcer is so important, both for the people that like know it and they just need to sort of like get ready and believe it's time, but also for the people that just aren't consuming your content like super, super closely. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to need to see it, right? And they might not see it half the time with your captions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can get lost, like, in like the feeds and like people, see it like for like a second and then they like move on,
Yeah.
and like, so even like sometimes like putting like the call to action like on your actual reel or carousel, like I'll have one actually at the end of my slides of like my carousel too.
Yeah. So you had shared with me that in the past 2 weeks you got 5 consults from therapy clients off of Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you had anything sort of like go viral at that point, or if it just felt like, it was a really good 2 weeks, or if that's kind of typical for you.
Um, I feel like it's just kind of like this like slow increase of
Yeah.
like getting people like from Instagram. So that wasn't like super like typical. But it just kind of like it's slowly like moving up how many people I am getting from Instagram. Um, and what was your question before?
I think like if you had anything go viral that
Oh,
sort of like caused that to happen.
yeah, no, nothing specifically like went like viral where like I
Yeah.
got like thousands of followers or anything. Um, I I think it like a lot of it was like from like sexual assault like awareness month and just kind of like that build up like from then, because that was like that's when I became like very 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 specific and like the more specific I am, the more people like reach out to me is kind of what I feel like it happens.
Yeah. Tell me about like that shift in specificity. Like what was your niche sort of at before compared to now?
Yeah, when I first started, I talked about trauma, just like general trauma. And that, was like okay for like starting out. But like the more specific I got, the more people are like, oh, she's talking about me.
Yeah.
And the better fitting clients that you like will get. And then I was also nervous about like that piece of do I say sexual abuse? Can I say that like on Instagram too? And so kind of like the cautiousness that I felt in the beginning has slowly like decreased where like I feel like more confident in like how I show up on Instagram.
I love that. What is your fee for therapy clients?
My fee is 150.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any fear there? I know at your last job you were doing free therapy. Was
Mm-hmm.
there any fear there around like your niche specifically? Like, there's free resources in the community for survivors of sexual violence. Like, people aren't going to want to pay me out of pocket $150 per session. I'm curious if that came up for you at all in terms of like niching down and really committing to this niche.
Yeah, I did have kind of that concern when I was like first starting out. Um, yeah, from going free to like 150 and then like talking to like my clients that I was seeing at the nonprofit that that's what I was doing. I was a little bit afraid too. But like when I talked to my clients like about that, some of them like just like they couldn't afford me just because
Yeah.
of like low income, but they were like, go get it. They're like, you deserve this. Like, you've been doing this for so long. Like, like they felt very like even proud of me, which is like
Yeah.
really interesting. And so like it was very like supported, like kind of like throughout everything that I experienced.
I love that.
Yeah.
How has that caused your income to shift overall from, sort of your nonprofit days till now?
Yeah, I so I remember the days where like after I paid my like house like bills and things, I had $100 per week for
Yep.
gas, for food, for everything. And so I was really, really living like paycheck to paycheck. And then I got a little bit like more comfortable like in my finances, gained a little bit more money with like some raises and increases. And then now it's just yeah, I'm still even getting used to, I think, like this new like shift in like income, because like I'm so used to kind of like living that way, that like structured paycheck to paycheck. And so now I'm like, do I want to plan a trip to Italy? Like, like I could do that. I just renewed my passport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that for you so, so, so much. And I think that that's the thing that, like, I don't know, sometimes we can forget that, like, money, it has so much more power to, like, quality of life. Like, I don't think money buys happiness, but I think it can
Hmm.
certainly buy things that, like, make us really happy?
Hmm.
And it's really hard to be in that state that I think so many of us start off with when you're working in community mental health or nonprofits, where you do make really low money. I know when I first started in New York City, I was making $38,000 a year with a grad
Hmm.
school degree, two graduate degrees at MSW and an MBA. And it's like impossible to get by, right? And so, like, the idea that you're going to go to Italy or something on that kind of salary is just a hard no. And so it's really cool to see sort of like quality of life get to change and, kind of
Hmm.
bringing in more fun things and stuff too.
Yeah, and like I do feel like the more money I get, the more I can provide to the community, and like the more that I can like show up, the more I can show up on Instagram because that I'm doing that out of really like the goodness of my heart. Like
Yep.
like that's kind of like a free resource. I am connected to a lot of like different resources. If people can't work with me, I'm like really happy to like share that and hiring on people. I really want to create like a trauma wellness center where there's like somatic practices happening. And so, like, the more money I make, the more money I can pour back into my community. And that's ultimately like what I want to do.
Yep. Very cool. Do you mind sharing where your monthly income is at now for folks, just for context?
So last month I made $12,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that
And
was
I
really
think,
exciting.
yeah. And I think that that's so cool too. I don't know how many clients you typically see a week or,
Um, so when I hit that income, it was around 2022 a
yeah.
week. And then I told myself that I was going to cap and create a wait list at 30.
Yeah.
And the last week I hit 29. So
Okay.
yeah, so it is like, I do feel like, okay, this is like a lot. And so that's why I also wanted to hire someone on. So I like just didn't have to like see that many. I think 20 is like the amount that like I would like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to be able to see like 20 clients a week and earn $12,000 a month is like, really life changing.
Hmm.
I can definitely also relate. Like, when I was in my first year in private practice, I was seeing like 25 ish clients a week. I think I had like 30 active people. I've always seen most of my folks weekly, but it ended up being like 25 sessions. And it was I think that that's like so normal your first year where you're like not really trusting yet. Like, are these referrals going to continue to come in? Like, should I say yes to people because I can help them? I can make the
Mm-hmm.
room, they're paying me X amount per session. Like, I'll just make it work. And I think that with time, as you're kind of already seeing, you're sort of going to learn to like, no, I can trust that like I can say, I can provide a referral for this client and sort of like say no because I'm at my capacity. And next time I need a client, like I'll be able to get another one,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of find more that balance of like, what's the number of clients and the income and all of that feels really good, and kind of trusting that like that's something you can truly sustain.
Yeah, and that like everything is like figure outable, like and
Yeah.
trusting that like, like you're gonna be okay. And worst case scenario, you can go back to that community mental health job if like you really need to. Like there's gonna be
Yeah.
plenty of that happening. So you might as well like take a risk on yourself. And right now, I also do accept some insurance, but like that's been another thought of mine. I'm like, well, I can get off the panels like if I
Yeah.
wanted to too. I could, like you just have so much like freedom and flexibility like when you're in your own practice.
Yeah. To like decide what really works for you. And that can change in different seasons for sure.
Right.
So to kind of like wrap up, let's talk a little bit about like content ideas and
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. So I know that you've been sort of like in and out of the Reels membership periodically. I'm curious if you
Mm-hmm.
could share for folks what that has been like, maybe how you would describe the Reels membership, and kind of comparing what it's like to create content on your own.
Yeah, so when you create content on your own, definitely more energy and more work for
Yeah.
sure. When I was in the Reels membership, it was like very easy to like get the ideas and just like implement. It was just very much about like implementing and like connecting with my audience still. When I was like being in and out of like the Reels membership, I at times like was out of it like to just kind of get into like my own flow and my own energy, and like I
Yeah.
did kind of enjoy like looking up like the trends and like things like
Yeah.
that. So whenever anyone like asks me about like Reels, or like I've had people hire me to help them with like their Instagram account and make them Reels and like stuff like that, and I'm like I'll like show them, but I'm like, but really this is the great resource. I'll like send them like the Reels like membership, because like it is like it's like so helpful, especially like when you don't know like what to do, what to post, and like the strategy that you use with like the hook, value, and call to action, like
Mm-hmm.
just again and again and again, like just so like streamlined, is what was helpful for me, and like understanding like how to use marketing strategies to bring in clients from Reels.
Yep. I love that. And I think that the Reels membership is really great for like sort of two people. And it seems like you've kind of been in both situations. So one is like when you're first starting and you're like, I don't really know how to come up with ideas. It can be super, super helpful. And then I think you're right. Like, you know, how do I put this? Like, I really, really enjoy coming up with trends and stuff. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why, I have the Reels membership. But once you really understand what you're doing, it can be quite fun to sort of like create your own content. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be, instead of posting 4 Reels a week with the Reels membership, maybe you're doing 7, and, you're coming up with 3 ideas on your own. Or maybe you're just taking a pause and kind of like, leaning into that creativity again. But
Mm-hmm.
where I often see the other group of folks who are really using the Reels membership is the ones who are quite busy in private practice. So
Yeah.
they're like, I'm pretty full, or, I have a lot on my plate and I don't really have time for that creativity. So, yes, I could come up with the ideas, but it's nice to sort of have somebody, do that for me.
Yeah, it's like that time balance is like time and energy. Like, do you have the time and energy to like look up like the trends and being in a creative state of flow? Or do you just need for this time for someone to tell you like kind of like what to do, where to go? Because like even like in times like where like you aren't feeling good, like you have your own personal stuff going on, but you still have to grow your practice. Like the Reels
Mm-hmm.
membership is also good in that way too, like when you just like mentally can't be in like that flow state.
Yep. I love that. Well, I am so proud of you. I think it is so, so cool that you have a full caseload with tons of clients coming from Instagram with less than 1,000 followers. I think it's such a clear testament to what happens when you show up consistently and when you're really clear on your message and are like actively actually selling on Instagram too, which is super important. So super, super proud of you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to, yeah, be in this place. Like even kind of like looking back from like a year ago, when I was like trying to like build everything, didn't have any people like in my private practice. It took a couple months before I got my first client. I actually got my first client last August, and
Mm-hmm.
so to like look back on like how much things have really like expanded for me, like is just so like such a, like a blessing.
Yep. What advice would you give to people who are thinking about starting an Instagram page and are sort of scared that they're never going to be able to grow their following or get clients and that it's going to be either like a waste of time or just like uncomfortable for no reason?
To come from a place of purpose. Like if you are constantly connected to your sense of purpose of like why you're a therapist, the person that you want to help, that will help drive your motivation. There are definitely been times where like I don't want to show up on Instagram, like this is scary. Even like I do a lot of like speaking engagements like in the community too, and I just keep my purpose in mind and the how
Mhm.
will follow. Like it's just like my purpose is so much greater than my fear.
Yep. I love that. Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me.